The alarm bells rang through the command center of Frontier Station Alpha like angry metal birds. Admiral Kane stood at the main display watching red dots appear on the tactical screen. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he barely noticed. Something big was coming through the jump gate. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Brooks from the communications console. Her voice was steady, but Kane could hear the worry underneath. "It's different from anything we've seen before." Kane nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that made several junior officers step back. The creature on the screen looked like a giant lizard that had learned to wear clothes. Its scales were dark green, almost black, and its yellow eyes seemed to look right through them. When it spoke, its voice was like gravel in a cement mixer. "I am Ambassador Vex of the Dominion Empire," the creature said. Its mouth full of sharp teeth made each word sound like a threat. "I speak for Emperor Thulon, ruler of 12,000 worlds and master of 1,000,000 species." Kane kept his face calm, but inside his mind was racing 12,000 worlds. That was more than humanity had even discovered, let alone colonized. "I'm Admiral Kane of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. What brings you to our space?" Vex's eyes narrowed, and something that might have been a smile crossed his face. It wasn't a pleasant sight. "Your space? How amusing. Small human, you claim ownership of 3 tiny star systems. The Dominion has watched your kind spread like insects across these few worlds. 47 colonies, 50 million of your species. You are nothing." The command center went quiet. Kane could feel his officer's eyes on him. "We've done well enough. For ourselves," he said carefully. "What do you want?" "Want?" Vex leaned forward, his large head filling the screen. "The Dominion does not want. The Dominion takes. Your species will surrender immediately. Your colonies will become part of the Empire. Your people will serve as they are meant to serve, as workers, as soldiers, as whatever the Emperor requires." Kane felt his jaw tighten. Around him he could hear the soft sounds of his crew shifting nervously. Lieutenant Brooks had gone pale. Ensign Roberts was gripping his console so hard his knuckles were white. "And if we refuse?" Kane asked, though he already knew the answer. Vex's laugh was like breaking glass. "Refuse? You have 50 million beings across 47 worlds. The Dominion commands the loyalty of species numbering in the trillions. Our fleets darken space itself. Your ships are crude, your weapons primitive. You cannot refuse." "Maybe our ships are different from yours," Kane said. "Maybe we do things our own way. But I can tell you this, humanity doesn't surrender. Not to anyone." The alien's expression changed. For a moment, Vex looked almost confused. "You do not understand. We have studied your kind. Your largest ship carries perhaps 200 beings. Your most powerful weapon can destroy a small moon. We have ships that carry 50,000 warriors. We have weapons that can crack planets." Kane nodded slowly. "I'm sure you do. And I'm sure you've beaten a lot of other species with them. But you haven't beaten us yet. Because we have not tried." Vex's voice rose to a roar. "Do you think we fear your tiny fleet? Your primitive colonies? The Dominion has conquered species far greater than yours without losing a single ship." "Maybe," Kane said, "but those species weren't human." For a long moment the two beings stared at each other across the light years. Then Vex spoke again, his voice colder than space itself. "Very well. Emperor Thulon offers you one final chance. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with the mercy due to those who know their place. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why 1,000 species kneel before the Dominion throne." Kane looked around his command center. He saw Lieutenant Brooks, barely 22 years old, who had joined the Defense Force to see the stars. He saw Ensign Roberts, who had 3 kids back on New Earth Colony. He saw Chief Petty Officer Martinez, who had served with Kane for 15 years and never once backed down from a fight. "Ambassador Vex," Kane said finally, "I appreciate you coming all this way to make your offer. But humanity has a saying. Live free or die. We choose freedom." Vex's eyes went wide with what might have been shock. You actually refuse?" After I've explained the power of the Dominion? We refuse, Kane said simply. Then you have chosen death, Vex snarled. General Korath leads Battle Group Omega, 200 ships of the Imperial Fleet. They are already moving toward your space. In 7 days they will arrive at your colony of Proxima Station. When they are finished, your people will understand the price of defying the Dominion. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in silence. Lieutenant Brooks was the first to speak. Sir, 200 ships, we have 37 in this entire sector. Kane nodded. I know, Lieutenant, but numbers aren't everything. He turned to face his crew. Send a message to all colony worlds. Tell them what's coming. Tell them to prepare for war. Sir, Chief Martinez stepped forward. Should we contact Earth? Request reinforcements? Kane thought about it for a moment. Earth was far away, and the bureaucrats there would take weeks to make any decision. The colonies would have to handle this themselves, at least at first. Send a report, he said finally. But don't ask for help, not yet. Let's see what we can do on our own first. As his crew began carrying out orders, Kane stared at the tactical display. 200 ships against 37. The aliens thought those numbers meant certain victory. They thought humanity was just another weak species to be crushed. Kane smiled grimly. The Dominion was about to learn that humans didn't fight like other species. They were about to discover that sometimes the smallest dog bites the hardest. In 7 days, General Korath would arrive at Proxima Station expecting an easy victory. Kane intended to make sure he got a very different kind of surprise. General Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching the human colony grow larger on the main screen. Proxima Station hung in space like a metal flower, its spinning sections catching starlight. Around it, small human ships moved in defensive patterns. Pathetic, muttered Captain Voss, Korath's second-in-command. Look at them. 30 ships against our 200. They should surrender, now, and save us all the trouble. Korath nodded, but something felt wrong. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Empire, and usually the enemy ran when they saw his fleet. These humans weren't running. Instead, they were forming up into attack formation. General, called the communications officer. The humans are transmitting. Put it through, Korath ordered. A human face appeared on screen. The man was young, maybe 30 years old, with short brown hair and determined eyes. I'm Commander Blake of the Colonial Defense Force. General Korath, I presume. Commander Blake, Korath said, trying to sound bored. I am here to accept your surrender. Order your ships to power down their weapons. Blake smiled, and it wasn't a friendly smile. Sorry, General. We don't surrender. We fight. With 30 ships against 200? Korath couldn't hide his surprise. That is not fighting. That is suicide. Maybe, Blake said. But it's our choice to make. The transmission ended. Korath stared at the blank screen. In all his years of conquest, no enemy had ever talked to him like that. They begged, they bargained, they threatened, but they never just said, "We fight," and meant it. Sir? Captain Voss was looking at him strangely. Your orders? Korath shook himself back to the present. Begin the attack. Standard formation. This will be over quickly. But it wasn't. The human ships moved like angry wasps, fast and unpredictable. Instead of forming a battle line like every other species, they scattered in all directions. Korath's ships tried to target them, but the humans were too quick, too wild in their movements. What are they doing? Captain Voss demanded as a human ship spun past their weapons fire, untouched. Then the humans struck back, and Korath understood why they weren't afraid. The first human ship to attack came straight at the Dominion's Fist at full speed. Korath's gunners hit it again and again, but it kept coming. At the last second, it launched every missile it had and then rammed itself into a Dominion cruiser. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up space. They're insane, Captain Voss shouted, over the noise of alarms. They're ramming us. More human ships were doing the same thing. They would charge straight at a Dominion vessel, launch everything they had, and then crash into their target. It was like fighting an enemy that didn't care if they lived or died. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice was high with panic. "We've lost 8 ships in the last 10 minutes. Korath watched the battle display in growing horror. His ships were bigger, stronger, better armed. But the humans fought like wild animals. They used tricks no civilized species would try. They hid behind asteroids and ambushed his scouts. They rigged their own ships to explode and sent them as guided bombs. They even launched their escape pods full of explosives. "These aren't soldiers," he muttered. "These are madmen." Commander Blake's ship, a small cruiser called New Hope, was still alive somehow. It danced between Korath's vessels like a ghost, its weapons firing constantly. Every time Korath's gunners thought they had it, the ship would do something impossible. Flip upside down, spin sideways, or drop like a stone. "How are they moving like that?" demanded Captain Voss. "Our ships can't maneuver that way." "Their ships are smaller," Korath realized. "They built them for speed, not strength. They're not trying to win a normal battle. They're trying to hurt us as much as possible before they die." And they were succeeding. The battle had been going on for 3 hours and Korath had lost 40 ships. 40. Against an enemy that should have been destroyed in minutes. But slowly, the human numbers fell. 30 became 20. 20 became 10. The New Hope was still fighting, but it was alone now, surrounded by Dominion ships. "End this," Korath ordered. "All ships concentrate fire on the human commander." The New Hope tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Korath's entire fleet poured fire into the small ship. Its shields failed, its armor melted, and finally, it began to break apart. But even as his ship died around him, Commander Blake kept fighting. His last missile struck a Dominion destroyer and sent it spinning out of control. "Bring me the survivors," Korath ordered as the wreckage cooled. There were only 5 humans left alive, and they were all badly hurt. Blake was among them, his left arm broken and his face covered in blood, but his eyes were still defiant. "Satisfied, General?" Blake asked as 2 Dominion soldiers dragged him onto the bridge. "You fought well," Korath admitted, "but you lost. Your colony is mine." Blake laughed, and the sound made Korath's skin crawl. "You think this was about winning?" "General, this was never about winning." "Then what was it about?" "Buying time," Blake said. "Making you bleed, showing you that humans don't give up." He looked straight at Korath with those burning eyes. "You have no idea what you've started. The colonies were just the beginning." "What do you mean?" Korath demanded. But Blake just smiled. "You'll find out." Korath had him shot an hour later, but the human's words stayed with him. The colonies were just the beginning? Beginning of what? That night, as Korath wrote his report to Emperor Thulon, he found himself thinking about the battle. He had won, yes. Proxima Station was his, but he had lost 40 ships doing it, against 30 human vessels. What would happen if he faced 300 human ships? Or 3,000? For the first time in his long career, General Korath felt something he had never felt before when facing a conquered enemy. He felt afraid. Emperor Thulon sat on his crystal throne, reading General Korath's battle report for the 3rd time. The great hall of the Imperial Palace was silent except for the soft humming of the energy shields that protected the building. Around him, his advisors waited nervously. 40 ships, the Emperor said finally. His voice echoed off the high ceiling. "You lost 40 ships to defeat 30 primitive vessels?" General Korath stood at attention in the center of the hall. Even through the hologram projector, Thulon could see the worry lines on his face. "Yes, Your Majesty. The humans fought unlike any species we have encountered." "How so?" demanded Minister Rex, the Emperor's chief advisor. The old reptilian's neck frills were raised in irritation. They had smaller ships, weaker weapons. Numbers should have meant nothing. Korath's jaw tightened. "They did not fight to win, Minister. They fought to hurt us. Every ship that died took one of ours with it. They used ramming attacks, suicide bombs, tactics no civilized species would consider." Emperor Thulon leaned forward on his throne. Something about this troubled him deeply. "General, In your report, you mentioned that the human commander spoke of the colonies as just the beginning. What did he mean? I don't know, Your Majesty, but his words worried me. He seemed confident that we had made a mistake. A mistake? Minister Rex laughed harshly. We conquered their strongest colony. What mistake could we have made? Before Korath could answer, another hologram appeared in the throne room. It was Admiral Zek, commander of the Outer Rim Fleet. Your Majesty, Admiral Zek said, his voice tight with concern. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. Emperor Thulon's eyes narrowed. What kind of problem? Our scout ships have encountered more humans, far beyond the territory we just conquered. The throne room went dead silent. Minister Rex's mouth fell open. More humans? How many more? Unknown, Your Majesty. But they're organized. They have different ship designs, different uniforms. They call themselves the Sol Defense Fleet, and they claim to be from something called Earth. Korath stepped forward. Earth? The human prisoners never mentioned this Earth as anything special. I thought it was just another colony world. That's what troubles me, Admiral Zek continued. These new humans we've met, they're asking about attacks on their frontier colonies. They seem to think the worlds we conquered were just outer settlements. Emperor Thulon felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. Show me the recordings. The main display activated, showing the bridge of a Dominion scout ship. Across from them was a human in a different uniform than the colonists. This one was dark blue with gold trim, much more formal looking. I'm Captain Davis of the Terran Navy's 3rd Scout Division, the human was saying. We've received reports that unknown aliens have attacked our frontier colonies. Is this accurate? The Dominion scout captain, clearly nervous, nodded. The Dominion Empire has claimed those worlds, yes. Captain Davis's expression went cold. Those worlds contain Terran citizens. That constitutes an active war against the Sol system. The Sol system? The scout captain asked. How many worlds is that? 8 planets, 43 major moons, over 200 orbital stations, Davis replied calmly. And about 20 billion citizens who are going to be very angry when they hear about this. The recording ended. The throne room was silent for a long moment. 20 billion? Minister Rex whispered. That can't be right. Our intelligence said 50 million total. Korath looked sick. What if our intelligence was wrong? What if we only found their outer colonies? Emperor Thulon stood up from his throne, something he rarely did during formal meetings. Admiral Zek, how many of these Sol Defense Fleet ships have our scouts encountered? Hundreds, Your Majesty. And they're not running. They're taking defensive positions around other human colonies we didn't even know existed. Other colonies? Yes, Your Majesty. It appears humans have settlements, scattered across thousands of light years, far more than the 47 worlds we attacked. Minister Rex was pacing now, his claws clicking on the crystal floor. This doesn't make sense. If they had 20 billion people, why did their colonies only have a few million each? Because they're new colonies, Korath said slowly, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. They're frontier settlements. The real human civilization is somewhere else. Emperor Thulon sank back onto his throne. In over 300 years of rule, he had never felt fear like this. Admiral Zek, what is your assessment of Sol Defense Fleet capabilities? Unknown, Your Majesty. Their ships are different from the colonial vessels, larger, more advanced. When our scouts try to get close, they're warned off by weapon signatures our computers can't even identify. And their behavior? Professional, organized. They're not panicking like a species facing conquest. They're acting like... Admiral, Zek paused. Like what? Emperor Thulon demanded. Like a military force preparing for war, Your Majesty. A real war, not a colonial skirmish. The Emperor looked around his throne room at the faces of his advisors. For the first time in centuries, they all looked afraid. General Korath, he said quietly. In your opinion, did we attack a civilization? Or did we attack the outer edge of something much larger? Korath's voice was barely a whisper. I think we kicked a sleeping giant, Your Majesty. And I think it's waking up. Outside the palace windows, the twin suns of the imperial homeworld were setting. But inside the throne room, Emperor Thulon, felt like darkness was just beginning to fall. "Send word to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "I want every ship we have prepared for possible conflict. And get me more information about this Earth place. I need to know what we're really dealing with." As his advisors hurried to carry out his orders, Emperor Thulon remained on his throne, staring at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, 20 billion humans were learning that aliens had attacked their people. For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Thulon wondered if the Dominion had finally bitten off more than it could chew. Major Rax had been the Dominion's best intelligence officer for 20 years. He had mapped enemy territories, counted enemy fleets, and predicted the fall of dozens of civilizations. But as he stood before Emperor Thulon's throne, his hands were shaking. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice barely steady, "I have completed the deep reconnaissance of human space. The news is disturbing." Emperor Thulon leaned forward. Around the throne room, his advisors waited in tense silence. 3 weeks had passed since they learned about the Sol Defense Fleet, and every day brought worse news. "Tell me everything, Major." Rax activated his datapad, and the throne room's main display came to life. It showed a star map with thousands of glowing points. "This is what we thought human space looked like 2 months ago," Rax said. A tiny section of the map highlighted in blue, just 3 star systems, 47 worlds, 50 million people. The display changed, and suddenly, blue points spread across a vast area of the galaxy. "This is what human space actually looks like." The throne room erupted in shocked gasps. Minister Rex fell backward into his chair. General Korath went pale as death. "How many systems?" Emperor Thulon asked, his voice very quiet. "Over 800. Confirmed, Your Majesty, with more being discovered every day. Our scouts estimate at least 1,500 human colonies exist." "And population?" Major Rax swallowed hard. "The Sol system alone contains 20 billion humans. Earth, their homeworld, has 12 billion, but that's not the worst part." "There's worse?" Minister Rex croaked. "Much worse. Our long-range probes reached the Sol system yesterday. What they found..." Rax paused, gathering his courage. "Your Majesty, Earth's moon has been completely converted into a shipyard. The entire lunar surface is covered with construction facilities. Mars has been terraformed into a military production center. The asteroid belt has been strip-mined to feed their war machine." The display showed images that made every Dominion official gasp in horror. Earth's moon looked like a giant metal factory, covered in docks where massive ships were being built. Mars glowed with the lights of millions of factories. Space itself was full of orbital stations, each one larger than most Dominion cities. "The industrial capacity is beyond anything we've ever seen," Rax continued. "In the time it takes us to build one warship, they can build 50. 50? General Korath stepped forward, his voice cracking. "That's impossible." "I'm afraid not, General. Our computers have analyzed their construction patterns. They don't build ships one at a time like we do. They have assembly lines that mass-produce entire fleets." Emperor Thulon's claws were digging into the arms of his throne. "Major, how many ships does humanity possess?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Major Rax looked at his datapad one more time, as if hoping the numbers had changed. "Current Sol Defense Fleet strength is estimated at 50,000 ships of various classes. Production facilities suggest they can build another 10,000 per year." The throne room went completely silent. Minister Rex was making small, choking sounds. General Korath sat down heavily on the floor. 50,000, Emperor Thulon repeated, slowly. "Our entire Imperial fleet numbers 12,000 ships." "Yes, Your Majesty. And that's just their main fleet. Each colonial sector has its own defense force. Total human military strength is estimated at over 200,000 vessels." Emperor Thulon closed his eyes. The Dominion Empire, master of 12,000 worlds, had just learned that they were outnumbered 20 to 1 by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Major," he said finally, "the ships we encountered at Proxima Station, how do they compare to this Sol Defense Fleet?" "The colonial defense ships were old models, Your Majesty, outdated designs used for frontier patrol. The Sol Defense Fleet uses ships that are significantly more advanced. How significantly? Major Rax showed another image. It was a human warship, sleek and deadly-looking, bristling with weapons the Dominion computers couldn't identify. This is a standard Sol Defense Fleet battleship. It's 3 times the size of our largest dreadnought. Its weapons systems are completely unknown to us. Our analysts believe a single ship like this could destroy an entire Dominion battle group. General Karath looked up from the floor. Major, when Admiral Kane refused our surrender demand, why didn't they contact this Sol Defense Fleet? Why fight alone with only colonial ships? We believe it was a matter of time and distance, General. Earth is far from the frontier colonies, but our communications intercepts suggest they have been contacted now. What kind of intercepts? Emperor Thulon asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. 3 days ago, we recorded a transmission from Earth to all human colonies. It was brief. Colonial Defense Force requests assistance. Alien aggression confirmed. Sol Fleet responding. That was signed by someone called Admiral Rivera of the 1st Battle Group. How many ships in this 1st Battle Group? Unknown, Your Majesty, but based on their naming conventions, we estimate between 5 and 10,000 vessels. Emperor Thulon stood up from his throne and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. Below him, millions of Dominion citizens went about their daily lives, unaware that their empire might soon face extinction. Major Rax, he said without turning around. In your professional opinion, what are humanity's intentions? Based on their military preparations and communications intercepts, Your Majesty, I believe they intend to make us pay dearly for attacking their colonies. Their ships are moving into defensive positions around all human territory. They're not just protecting themselves, they're preparing for war. A war we cannot win. No, Your Majesty, we cannot. Emperor Thulon turned back to face his advisors. For the first time in 3 centuries of rule, he felt truly helpless. Gentlemen, he said quietly, we have made a terrible mistake. We thought we were conquering a small, weak species. Instead, we have attacked the frontier settlements of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. What do we do? Whispered Minister Rex. Emperor Thulon looked at the display showing human space, hundreds of star systems, billions of people, and more military power than the Dominion could imagine. We pray, he said. We pray that they are more merciful than we have been. Outside, the stars were shining. Somewhere among them, the Sol Defense Fleet was coming, and Emperor Thulon knew that when they arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Admiral Rivera stood on the bridge of the Earth's Pride, watching the jump gate activate. Around her flagship, 5,000 ships of the Sol Defense Fleet's 1st Battle Group waited in perfect formation. Each vessel was larger and more powerful than anything the Dominion had ever built. Admiral, called Captain Morgan from the tactical station. We're receiving transmissions from Dominion space. They're requesting immediate negotiations. Rivera smiled coldly. She was 50 years old, with gray hair and eyes like winter storms. She had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens for 30 years. But this was different. This was personal. Ignore them, Captain. We didn't come here to talk. The fleet emerged from the jump gate at the edge of Dominion territory like a metal avalanche. 5,000 human warships, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could crack moons. The Dominion Border Patrol took one look at the massive fleet and fled. On the Imperial homeworld, Emperor Thulon received the news in his private chambers. He was alone except for his personal guard, staring out at the night sky. When Minister Rex brought him the report, his hands were trembling. Your Majesty, Rex whispered. The humans have arrived. 5,000 ships. Only 5,000, Thulon asked. That's less than half their fleet. Yes, Your Majesty. Intelligence suggests this is just their advance force. Long-range sensors are detecting more fleets moving through human space. Emperor Thulon closed his eyes. How many more? Impossible to count, Your Majesty. Our scouts report fleet movements across hundreds of systems. It appears humanity is mobilizing their entire military. 3 hours later, Admiral Rivera's face, appeared on screens throughout Dominion space. She wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran Navy, and her expression was carved from ice. "I am Admiral Rivera of the Sol Defense Fleet," she began. "3 weeks ago, Dominion forces attacked human colonies, killing thousands of innocent civilians. This was an unprovoked act of war against the Terran Federation." Emperor Thulon watched the broadcast from his throne room, surrounded by his terrified advisors. "The Dominion Empire claims to rule 12,000 worlds," Rivera continued. "You believe this makes you powerful. You are wrong. The Terran Federation encompasses 1,500 systems and contains over 50 billion citizens. Our industrial capacity exceeds yours by a factor of 50. Our military strength is beyond your comprehension." General Korath, who had been silent since the human fleet arrived, finally spoke. "She's not threatening us. She's explaining why we're already dead." "To demonstrate human capabilities," Rivera said, "we will now conduct a military exercise." The transmission ended, but long-range sensors immediately detected massive energy signatures from the edge of Dominion space. 3 uninhabited star systems that the Empire used for target practice suddenly exploded in sequence. First, the planets were destroyed, their surfaces turned to molten rock. Then the stars themselves were destabilized, turning into supernovas that lit up the entire sector. The demonstration lasted exactly 1 hour. When it was over, 3 entire solar systems had been reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and debris. "They destroyed 3 stars," Major Rax reported, his voice barely a whisper. "In 1 hour, they wiped out 3 complete star systems." Emperor Thulon stared at the tactical display showing where the systems used to be. Nothing remained but radiation and glowing gas. "Your Majesty," General Korath said slowly, "if they can do that to star systems, what could they do to our worlds?" Before anyone could answer, Admiral Rivera appeared again on all communication channels. "Emperor Thulon," she said, looking directly into the camera, "I know you're listening. The demonstration you just witnessed was conducted by 1/10 of my fleet using standard weapons. We have much more powerful tools available if needed." The throne room was dead silent. "Here are humanity's terms," Rivera continued. "First, all Dominion forces will withdraw immediately from human territory. Second, the Dominion will pay reparations for the damages caused during your unprovoked attack. Third, the Empire will submit to monitoring by Terran observers to ensure future compliance." Minister Rex made a strangled sound. "Monitoring? They want to station observers in our territory?" "Fourth," Rivera said, her voice growing even colder, "General Korath and all officers involved in the attack on Proxima Station will be surrendered to Terran authority for trial." General Korath went white as snow. "Trial? For what?" "War crimes," Rivera answered as if she could hear him. "The murder of civilians and prisoners of war." "And if we refuse these terms?" Emperor Thulon asked the empty air. Rivera smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression anyone in the throne room had ever seen. "If you refuse, the Sol Defense Fleet will demonstrate why 12,000 worlds kneel before 20 billion humans. We have the industrial capacity to build 1 million ships. We have the population to crew them. We have weapons that can turn your homeworld into a second sun. Do not test our resolve." The transmission ended, leaving the Dominion leadership in stunned silence. "Your Majesty," whispered Minister Rex, "what do we do?" Emperor Thulon looked around the throne room at his advisors, his generals, his ministers, all the beings who had helped him conquer 1,000 worlds and rule an empire, spanning half the galaxy. Now they sat before him like frightened children. "We accept," he said finally. "Your Majesty?" General Korath stepped forward. "Accept? We are the Dominion Empire. We have never surrendered to anyone." "General," Thulon said quietly, 3 weeks ago we attacked what we thought was a primitive species with 50 million people. Today we learned that they have 50 billion people and can destroy star systems for target practice. They're not asking us to surrender. They're explaining why we already have." "But the shame, Your Majesty, the humiliation," Emperor Thulon stood up from his throne and walked to the great window. Outside, his capital city sparkled with lights. Millions of his people lived and worked below, unaware that their empire's 3,000-year dominance was over. "General Korath," he said without turning around, "would you rather be humiliated or extinct?" The next morning, Emperor Thulon sent his reply to Admiral Rivera. The Dominion Empire accepted all human terms unconditionally. As the news spread across Dominion space, a strange thing happened. Instead of anger or rebellion, there was relief. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled through fear and force. Now, for the first time, they had encountered something more powerful than themselves. The age of the Dominion was over. The age of humanity had begun. And in the depths of space, more human fleets continued to move through the darkness, making sure the galaxy understood one simple truth: never underestimate the species that refuses to surrender.